Hello everyone, my name is Joanna Sotelo and welcome to my video presentation on the Instilment of Moral Reasoning. This research study used an integrative approach to studying parents' contribution to their child's moral reasoning competencies. Before we go into all else, I would really like to give you some background information of what parenting styles are and what they look like. So first off, on the bottom to the right, we have the neglectful parent. This parent is uninvolved, provides no support to their child, and provides no discipline to their child. Thankfully, we have services like DCS and other child welfare programs that reach out and intervene with these children. Moving on, we have on the left side of the parenting spectrum the permissive parent. The permissive parent is very high in support toward their child, but provides little to no discipline. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the authoritarian parent, who provides little to no support and provides an overload of discipline. And right in the middle, we have the authoritative parent, who is high on support and high in discipline. This parent is basically what they call best of both worlds. They're very balanced and centered, and many research has demonstrated that this parenting style has the best outcome for children. And for morality, we have our 3-stage, 6-leveled morality competencies designed by Kohlberg. Here we see the pre-conventional, the conventional, and the post-conventional. Today we will be highlighting conventional and post-conventional just because the pre-conventional we see moral competencies in children from birth to 7 to 8 years old, and then the conventional we see that most of our teenagers and adults are in that range, and then only about 15 to 20% of a population is able to reach the post-conventional. I won't get into depth about what they all mean because we will be here forever, but there are levels. So the first, second, and the third, and the 6 levels really demonstrate the moral reasoning competencies. We know a little bit about that background. The purpose of this study is to examine the relation between a college student's moral reasoning competencies and their perceived parenting styles. So hopefully with this research study, we obtain data that provide us insights to help us further understand daughters and sons' perceived parenting interactions and the relation to their moral reasoning competencies. So the reason why we say perceived is because unfortunately in this study, I was unable to obtain child participants. Other scholars who study this relation obtain child participants, and they're able to record the moral reasoning competencies development as it's happening. However, we will only be looking at the end of the spectrum once majority of the development has completed, and we will only be able to measure the perceived, what the participant believes, what they remember, how they understood their parents' interactions. And hopefully we can compare to those studies that do study moral reasoning development over time, whereas we will be studying how that person perceives it, understands it. And hopefully it will also provide us with more insights about the cognitions that contribute to moral reasoning development, again, towards that end of the age spectrum. And hopefully if this lets us know, hey, it does matter. These interactions do matter. They really contribute to the child's moral reasoning abilities. Hopefully it provides us with insights of how to develop interventions that will ensure more positive effects on children, particularly on those child welfare and in any family setting. So the literature lets us know that the development of moral reasoning does not happen on its own. We use the zone of proximal development to demonstrate to us that moral reasoning is learned. We see here in the center to the left that what the child or individual is able to do on their own is very little compared to the big circle. Whereas the second shell of that circle is what that child or individual is able to do with some help of an adult or older individual. And then the outermost shell, that's the shell where the child will not be able to perform that task with or without the help. But with the help of an adult, they'll eventually get there. And that's the idea that brings back to the development of moral reasoning. Many scholars believe that through this design, parents can help contribute to embed higher moral reasoning abilities to their child. And then we also see the idea of prohibitive moral reasoning. Prohibitive moral reasoning is the idea that is embedded to a child to behave not in the sense of a conventional stage. It's more in terms of they know that breaking the law is not right. So it's prohibitive. Their behavior is prohibitive of breaking the law. There's a lot of background information of just this concept alone, but we see through research that warmer parenting styles with discipline, the authoritative parenting, really influences high prohibitive moral reasoning in their children. We also see that authoritative parenting style provides more adaptive versus maladaptive moral reasoning. Many research has shown us that the neglectful and permissive and authoritarian parenting styles have influenced maladaptive moral reasoning, and that's where we see the difference between the authoritative parents and the other three parenting styles, and how they really contribute to that zone of proximal development of how they teach their children about moral reasoning. So for this study, for myself to study the relation, I obtained the moral competence test, and I developed my own parental influence survey, and we obtained 50 college-aged ASU students. We have here all the data, the completed data, that we obtained 39 female, which obtained of 78% of the population, and 11 male, which turned out to be 22%. And then as far as age, again, we did the college student range, which is 18 to 24, and our mean age was 22 years of age. And as far as ethnicity, we obtained Hispanic, African American, no Asian, Caucasian, Native American participants. As you can see, 40% of our population was Hispanic, 18 was African American, 38 was Caucasian, and 4% was Native American. And then I also looked at another factor, which was discipline. Unfortunately, due to time and availability of who was willing to take my survey, I obtained very clear-cut type of participants. And it turned out to be 48% social work major backgrounds and 52% psychology major backgrounds. So the results were that authoritative, warm parenting interactive styles did yield the higher moral reasoning abilities. Here we see from 0 to 0.5, we see the authoritarian parenting styles. And on the other side of the spectrum, we see the permissive parenting. So on this side, we have a lot of warmth, and on this side, we have a lot of discipline. And then from here to here, we see the center, which would be the authoritative parenting style. And we see here are 3 participants who were able to go in past that 3rd stage of moral reasoning competencies. Below that, we are able to see that, again, about 80% of the population that I obtained seems to be in that stage, in that 2nd conventional stage. And then as far as gender or sex goes, we see, again, remember that I only obtained a few male participants and a lot more female participants, but what really surprised me was to see that only female participants were past that 3rd stage and past that 2nd stage and onto the 3rd stage of moral reasoning competencies. And then here we are able to see the difference in their moral reasoning competencies. Again, this with females taking these 3 outliers, we see that this number is really high. But when we look at the graph, we're able to see the differences and the big gap in between the participants. As far as age, we see absolutely no difference. Age is definitely not influencing it in the little age range that I chose to study this relation. If we would have studied this relation in a wide range of different subjects, we definitely would see a correlation going on. But again, we were stuck in this 2nd stage for the most part. And I was also very intrigued in finding out if ethnicity had anything to do with moral reasoning competencies. So again, no significant results. We see that, all our ethnicities are demonstrating to be, again, in that 2nd stage of moral reasoning competencies. And then we see here, as far as parenting styles go, we see that parenting styles are not really different in different ethnicities. We do see both permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative parenting styles in all ethnicities. And this is where we see the moral reasoning competencies and ethnicity. We do have here that Hispanic and Latino background has the 3 outliers who made it past the 2nd stage. But in terms of when we consider sample size, it's not significant enough because the population that was obtained was not representative enough to really look in deeper into what's going on as far as ethnicity influencing higher moral reasoning competencies. So since I obtained a very clear-cut discipline sample, I decided to examine this as well. So here on the left side, we see the relation of the difference in between social workers and psychologists and their experiences with their parents' interactions. And we see here that social workers seem to have received or experienced very in that range of authoritarian parents who are higher in the discipline and a little bit lower on the support. And we also see that the psychology backgrounds obtains or experienced very authoritative parenting styles. They're right in the cut. They experience balanced discipline and balanced support. And as far as moral reasoning competencies, this surprised me a lot to have seen that an authoritarian experience can influence a higher morality level, because every research study out there is telling us that the authoritative parenting style is influencing higher moral reasoning competencies. So I was like, I need to look deeper into this, and maybe it's an idea for another student or for myself to research in the future. But then I remembered that the 3 outliers that we had that made it to the 3rd stage were based off on gender, if we remember. So I took them out of the graph, and again we see pretty much the same results. Social workers experienced authoritarian parenting styles, and then the psychology background experienced more authoritative parenting styles. And we see that this graph changes. And from this graph, I thought this was a pretty dramatic change. So I looked deeper into it to see if there was really going to be a difference in whether the experiences we obtained from our parents or our moral reasoning abilities influence what career we choose or what field we choose. So I put it out in a scat plot, and it looks like there is no difference. That's why I was getting this number telling me it's not significant. Whereas over here, it's almost significant. Just we do confirm the hypothesis. Authoritative parenting did yield higher moral reasoning competencies in my research study. We also see that the results relate to major theories in psychology and family and human development through the parenting styles, specifically the authoritative parenting, with that result of it yielding higher moral reasoning competencies. However, I did not see what I was expecting as far as lower moral reasoning abilities in individuals who experience permissive and authoritarian parenting styles. But I also have to keep in consideration that we're talking about college-age students, and most of these students have been in the conventional moral reasoning ability stage since their teenage years. So how it relates is a lot more complicated than a research study can really reveal. Sometimes we have to look deeper than that, and hopefully in the future we will continue to unravel this information. The most surprising to me in this study was participants' choice of major and its possible relation to their moral reasoning competencies. When I saw that the significant value was almost significant, it was insane to me because I thought that I had found something in my little research sample that I wouldn't have if I obtained a really randomized sample. But I definitely believe that we should keep looking into that relation in the future to see if it was a coincidence or what's really going on there. And the obvious limitations of my study were the discipline sample. I obtained basically half and half of social work and psychology majors, and I really wish that I would have obtained a wider variety of disciplines in my research study. And definitely the college student age sample. I only attained a few 18 and 19-year-old participants because of the reason of the participants being collected in upperclassmen, courses. But in the future, that's definitely something that I would change. I would make the survey available online so that I can get it out to a bigger variety of individuals instead of just what's accessible to me throughout the day, and people who are willing to sit down and complete a survey. Thank you so much for watching.